All right. Welcome, Alida, to the Spirit Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Thank you. And I know you're on the West Coast, and I am actually now on the East Coast. Just came out here 2 weeks ago. Have
Sweet.
family out here in the DC area. So, yeah, we haven't had a chance to meet yet in person, but I've been reviewing your work and just really excited to have you here today on the podcast.
Awesome. I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, let me go ahead and read your bio so people know a bit about you.
Okay.
So, Alida McDaniel, after conquering a 20-year battle with obesity, depression, and chronic illness, Alida McDaniel found her calling as a coach. The healing process gave her a powerful awareness about what was truly possible in the body, mind, and spirit. Since that time, she's devoted her life to helping clients overcome some of the toughest challenges they may face in all areas of life. As a coach, she uses tools for optimal wellness, building stronger relationships, developing deep spiritual connectivity, and creating intuitive strategies for healing with whole foods, fitness, and mindset. In addition to her thriving coaching practice, she's the co-founder of Mind Soul Fit OC in Newport Beach, California, and this month she'll be launching a new cooking show on YouTube and a conscious clothing line. Awesome. Welcome again to the show, Alida. You
Thank
are
you.
a busy gal.
I am. Yes. It took me a long time to get to this point. Like my bio says, it was I spent a 20-year battle, really kind of wasting my life away in misery and sorrow. And so once I finally escaped, it really kind of gave me the wings to really understand what I'm truly capable of creating, so it's what got me here today.
Amazing. And that is one reason that your work stood out to me, because it seems like you've had this arc where you really had to struggle to find your way to all of these spiritual practices and being able to help others. Would you mind just telling us a bit about your story of recovery from chronic illness and depression? How did you get started on the path to self-development?
Yeah. So, during the course of those 20 years, it kind of sparked around the time when my parents got divorced. I was being molested at the time by some older kids. And it really kind of threw me for a loop because now everything that felt comfortable was gone. And so, that really kind of sent me into a food addiction, that sent me into victim consciousness, that sent me into really fearing, going out and taking risks, being authentic, feeling okay being a woman. And one step after the next, I just kept digging myself into a hole. And during the course of that time, my mom was she was very supportive. She's always been a health conscious, individual. And she's always encouraged me to take ownership for my life. But during the course of that time, I was just so in a dark space that I couldn't see that it was possible. And I'll never forget, there was one moment where my mom came home and I was crying uncontrollably. I had zero control over my emotions. And she said to me, like, I want to take you to go get tested. I think you're on drugs. And I was like, seriously, I'm completely sober. I just have no control over my emotions. And so she took me to go get tested because she still feared. She didn't understand the depression. And when she realized that it had nothing to do with drugs, it was completely depression, that really changed our relationship because she really started looking for answers. But it wasn't until I was diagnosed by a third doctor to go on antidepressants, thankfully I didn't take them, that it made me understand that I really was addicted to food, that I was giving food power over me, and that I was giving my past power over me. And being a complete alpha female, as soon as I realized that something outside of me had power over me, and it was a clear wake-up call, I decided, enough is enough. I went to culinary school to understand how to make the foods that I was addicted to healthy for me. While I was there, I started losing weight. I started understanding. I always say the trannies taught me how to be a woman because I hung out with the trannies up there, and they taught me how to feel comfortable in my own skin. And during the course of that time, it really gave me the opportunity to understand that if I was going to go out and make food healthier, that I wanted to be that person. I wanted to walk the talk. I didn't want to just tell people how to live. I wanted to be that person. And it was in that moment that I think I realized that my purpose was so much bigger than just me losing the weight and me conquering all of these illnesses and this depression. It was about me being a leader, which is, you know, what I've always been. And it was about me taking ownership of that position and that role and that purpose. And as soon as I did that, everything changed. I changed my direction with my work. I changed my direction with the things that I was reading, the things that I was exposing myself to, my focus, my direction, meditating, yoga, studying tons of quantum consciousness and comparative religions. And I've been doing that for about 15 years now. But as soon as I conquered all of that, it really helped me to understand that all of the tools that I found during the course of that time, the tools that I intuited, right? I could go out and I could teach others. And that's when I literally just walked into Gold's Gym and I said, hey, you know, what does it take to be a personal trainer? I'm just curious. And they hired me on the spot based on my before and after pictures. So I didn't turn back from there. And I've been doing this work in some way, shape, or form ever since.
That is so inspiring. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, you mentioned there was a moment when you decided not to take those drugs for depression and you realized it was actually the food that was having a major effect on your emotions. How did you come to that conclusion? What was that moment of awakening like?
It's funny that you asked that. I don't ever really go back in that point in time much, but during the course of that time, I was working 3 part-time jobs and going to college. I didn't want to go to college, but at the time, degrees still mattered. You know, I'm going to be 40 next year. And so, you know, at that time, degrees actually mattered. So my mom, she was really adamant about making sure that I got a real college degree. So I was going to college, absolutely miserable, taking only philosophy and psychology classes. And every day I would pass by this kind of like super cheapy culinary school. And I even went in, got information, you know, got a brochure, and even had a conversation with my mom once that 3rd doctor diagnosed me. I said, look, I want to go to culinary school. I need to do something that makes my heart sing. I've always loved to cook. I need to do something artistic. College is not working for me. And, you know, at that time, I was in a relationship where everything, because he was super, super skinny, we would always have dessert before we would have dinner. And I had the mindset that I wanted to eat dessert first so that I didn't have to save room for it later. And when I started looking at that culinary school and started thinking, you know, something in my life is not working. It's not clicking. And I'm sad and I'm depressed and I feel alone, even though I'm in this relationship and he's awesome and my mom loves me. But something's just not right. And in that, going to that culinary school, in my mind, it was like, well, maybe if I know that I'm always going to make dessert first, why not make it something that's healthier? So I'm not, you know, continuing to pack on these pounds. I was getting really sick and tired of getting to the point where I was reaching those numbers of clothing where I couldn't shop at certain stores anymore. And that was kind of like that was like my tipping point. Was I couldn't allow myself to go past the size 16, even though I was over 200 pounds. You know, I couldn't let myself go into the next store. I think that was probably just like that boundary where I just wouldn't allow myself to cross.
Gotcha. That definitely makes sense. And it sounds like you were recognizing that something was very much out of balance. So when you said you went to the culinary school to figure out, how do I fix this? You know, you need outside help. So that seems like a key moment of like, okay, I can't do this myself. Something is wrong, and looking for that help. And I like that you mentioned setting a boundary as well, because it seems like so much, I mean, you're the expert on this, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on boundaries. It seems like so much of taking back our power is about setting boundaries with our energy and our time.
Yeah, the challenge that I see in a lot of clients is their code of conduct. And I recommend to clients that they set up a code of conduct. Most people, when they come to me for coaching, they know exactly what they don't want from life, but they don't know what they do want from life, right? And so when you ask somebody, what do you want from life? They're like, well, I don't want to attract losers anymore. And I don't want to experience this. And I don't want to experience that. So all of their boundaries are based on survival and defense instead of setting boundaries for success. All of their excuses are made against success. They're all in like keeping me safe. I've got to play it safe, right? So when we talk about boundaries, we talk about the understanding that we've got to move into the growth. We've got to move into the joy. We've got to move into the bliss. We've got to move into the awareness that there's so much more to life than this. And if we can start setting our boundaries to support our growth instead of setting our boundaries to keep us safe, then it changes what we're able to experience.
Powerful. Yeah, absolutely. That is amazing. Let me just look here. So how did you get started in coaching? What started you on the path to developing this coaching practice? You mentioned, you wanted to give people the same tools that you found, but you seem to be a different kind of coach where you're actually coaching people with food, with wellness, holistic nutrition, and then also with lifestyle coaching, from what I understand. So how did you decide to do both of those paths?
Well, one of the things that I realized as a personal trainer was that there was a lot of things that people needed to know outside of the gym. And so I found myself teaching them everything they needed to know so that we could work out and they could talk at the same time. So their body was trained in such a way I could give them an exercise. They would fall right into proper form and technique. And we would be able to talk about their life, talk about their food, talk about their habits, talk about their relationships while they were working out. And I noticed that I had a real knack for talking it out with people, but also calling them out on their BS, because a lot of people really struggle with the fact that everybody's enabling them instead of calling them out where they need to be called out. So as I started doing that, I started realizing that a lot of the work that I'm doing is a lot more coaching rather than fitness. And that's essentially, it took me quite a few years to get into that mindset, but I made the kind of cutoff back in 2010 where I said, I'm going to go full-time coaching and, I'll do fitness on the side, but full-time coaching is really for me where it's going to be at, because that's really where my passion is, using my voice, speaking up. And I find that the more I speak, the more I've got to share. Right. And I started realizing the more I started doing that, the more I was able to start teaching workshops and doing speaking. And then I was starting to be more intuitive in my coaching. So it's almost like I took that one little kind of glimmer of, okay, this is where my purpose is calling me, right? I said yes to the universe, had a lot of pitfalls, a lot of mistakes, a lot of, bruised knees and smacked heads. But the more I continued to listen, the more I realized I'm just a vessel for this message. And that, I think that is what makes me the coach that I am today, is I listened to the message. I resisted it at first. And once I surrendered, I've become a vessel.
Wonderful. And what I'm hearing is really about staying committed, about, never giving up and really focusing on what you want to achieve, what your path is. Now, I wonder, with that being said, if you can talk about some of the obstacles, specifically just giving people advice, because, this podcast is for entrepreneurs. Most of the people listening are business owners or entrepreneurs. And, we go through so many ups and downs with our businesses. So I wonder, from your personal experience, what are some tips for transforming fear?
That's a really awesome question. First of all, don't be afraid of being vulnerable. Most people allow fear to make their decisions for them. Okay. And when we embrace vulnerability, when we embrace the fact that every single experience we are going through, that contrast that we are being given, is an opportunity for us to grow, right? So if we look at every single moment and we have a choice, do I allow fear to hold me back? Or do I forge myself in this contrast and find a way to allow this experience to show me where I am weak and help me to grow stronger, right? Then the fear doesn't have so much power over us. So it's a matter of basically saying, okay, fear is present because I'm looking to survive. I'm looking to preserve my current identity state, right? And so if that fear is present and I'm looking to just preserve myself, then is preserving myself really going to help me get to where I need to be, right? And then I think the other thing that I would say too is that, you know, the person that you are in success is not going to be the same person that you are today. So what you want to think about is who that person is, what their character is, what their qualities are, what their habits are. And you want to work to calibrate yourself to that, right? There was a powerful quote that I heard along the way. It says, God does not call the qualified, God qualifies the called. And to me, that really meant that, like, look, you know what, you might decide that you want to be a coach today, but the process to becoming a coach is where the transformation is going to be. Becoming a coach, there's no actual destination, right? Becoming an entrepreneur, there's no official destination. You're only at the starting line, and you're actually at the starting line every single day. So most people fear that the destination's not going to be perfect, but what you want to realize is every single day is a new starting point. And so if you see it like that, every single day gets used as an opportunity to show up to the next starting line better than you were the last time you were there. And so I think that's probably the best way to get around fear, because most of us are just like, we're stuck in perfectionism.
Absolutely. And you said something that was a key word that stood out for me was to calibrate ourselves, you know, to where we want to get to. And I had never thought of it like that. I think that's similar to me of like tuning an instrument. It's like,
right.
Yeah, the instrument is not always going to be tuned. You have to take a few moments to make sure it sounds the way you want it to. And so it seems like we could do that if we're facing any kind of fear, just like looking at who we want to be, the qualities that we want to have.
Of course. I mean, when we think about spirit-based business, we have to talk about law of attraction, right? And when we talk about law of attraction, we have to talk about frequency. So if my thoughts, my habits, my beliefs, my behaviors are all based on frequency, why would I not be calibrating this musical instrument that is my body, right, to that future version of excellence that I truly want to be? It all boils down to calibration.
That's amazing. Wow, I had never thought of it like that. That's so cool. So let's see here. I'm just reviewing my questions. So you said something on your website that really stood out to me. You said in the topic of taking back your power, you said you find most women are really hiding from their true power. Instead of speaking when it's acceptable, we must learn to speak when it's necessary. And this does seem like it is an obstacle for women. What is it that's preventing us from speaking our mind? Why are we, going around being polite, and how does that affect us in business?
Well, we're battling with those archetypal, historical figures, right? In history, women have been condemned for speaking their truth, right? If a woman speaks up, we're judged as a bitch. And unfortunately, we have developed this overly masculine archetype within ourselves that prevents us from showing up authentically, right? We think that we have to prove ourselves like a man would in order to show up with power. And so in that regard, I think that's what stands in our way is we're fighting between what's truly our reality versus what we think is reality. And we're so afraid of how people are going to judge us that we don't give ourselves permission to understand that intuitively we know what to say. We know what to do, but we're so afraid of how the world is going to see us. I don't want to be judged as a bitch, right? I don't want the world to condemn me because I'm a woman, right? Or people buy in. I feel saddened that many women buy into this belief that women have it so hard, right? We only have it as hard as we make it. So it really comes down to the inner dialogue. What is the inner dialogue that we have with ourselves on a daily basis? Am I telling myself I am enough? Am I telling myself I am worthy? Because if I'm not, I cannot expect the world to give it to me. I cannot expect the world to respect me if I don't respect myself. And so that necessary speaking up is not just about speaking up to others, but speaking up to ourselves.
Wow. Well, that's really helpful. I think, people listening to this podcast, probably a majority women, but I think that info is helpful for men as well, because this is an important dialogue, we have, and the difference in communication and our cultural conditioning. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and we're about at time, right?
Yeah. If you have a time, I'll just go through one more question. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Awesome. The last question is about let's see. So we were talking about recognizing our self-worth, and it seems like coming from a place of recognizing our self-worth, we're setting the boundaries on our time and our energy. And to me, when I was preparing for the interview, I was thinking, so much of the boundary setting is about letting go. And I wonder, how we can be okay with letting go of what is not serving us. What are some tips that you give to your clients?
Oh yeah, that's an awesome question. So it really boils down to, first of all, getting to know exactly what it is that you want. We cannot let go of things that no longer serve us if we don't have a clear direction of where we're going, right? And this goes back to calibration. It's basically saying, if I carry this baggage with me on the climb up that mountain to the top, right? Is this going to help me get there? Is it not, right? And so most of us are so stuck with the identity of the suffering that we don't want to let it go, because we're afraid of the uncertainty. Who will I become if I no longer identify with this trauma? Who will I become if I change this story? What will I say to people? How will I respond? How will people see me, right? So the process of letting go is surrendering your power, your current belief of power, to the higher version of you and saying, my work is to calibrate my current self to my future self. And everything that's holding me back, I will commit to letting go of, because these things are holding me back. And what's most important is my growth, is my expansion, is that higher version of me. And if I can allow myself to let go and shed all of the layers that are standing in the way between me and that, then not only am I serving my highest good, I am a better servant to the world.
Definitely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to add for our listeners? They're all conscious entrepreneurs. Yeah. You gave so much great information, but
I think we covered so much today. I think that was awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And where can people go to find you, Alida?
So you can find me at ambassadorforgoodness.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Alida McDaniel, or if you want to find my business page, it's at Goddess Intelligence, facebook.com/Goddess Intelligence. You can also find me on Medium. I've got a blog there. You can find me on Instagram, Goddess Intelligence. You can find me on Snapchat, Alida McDaniel. You can find me on Twitter, Alida McDaniel. Anywhere on social media, you can pretty much find me.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
And I'm so excited for your cooking show. I'm definitely looking out for that. And when you're ready, send it my way and I'll send it out to people.
Thank you.
Definitely link up all your social media sites in the show notes.
Sweet.
So thank you so much for joining us. And we definitely look forward to speaking to you again.